From courtside of the virtual hardwood, it's the NLSC Podcast, a weekly show for basketball gamers and hardcore hoopheads. And with you once again, joined as always by my co-host Derek, aka D for 3. Derek, we've talked about the cost of gaming before, and it's not going down anytime soon. We have some new hardware and figures to discuss this week, so please, tip us off.
Yeah, on today's show, we will be discussing the Steam Machine, a new gaming console which launched on June 29th, with prices that have been controversial, to say the least. We will be discussing the features, specs, benefits, drawbacks, and reactions to it all. So, Andrew, we both game on our PCs. However, we do it a little differently. You have the traditional setup, where you have your PC hooked up to a monitor and you sit at a computer desk. Me, however, I've been doing almost all of my PC gaming over the last decade on my couch, with the PC hooked up via HDMI to my 50-inch TV, using Xbox One or Xbox Series wireless controllers. So in a sense, I've been using my desktop PC like a Steam machine, but with all the other benefits of having a PC, as has my brother with his own PC. We both play from our couches. Now, disregarding the get-in price for a Steam machine, which we will be discussing a little bit later in the show, does the idea of a Steam machine intrigue you?
I mean, it certainly does, because I do play on PC, as you said. I do have a Steam library, an extensive Steam library, and I'm not adverse to hooking up a PC to my TV. I have all my consoles hooked up currently to my TV. Wouldn't mind hooking the PC up as well. Certainly not against the idea. But that being said, I don't have a particular need for it. So on top of everything else, kind of hard to justify that way.
And that makes sense. But the reason I brought up the setup that I have, the setup that my brother has, is because I see the draw to this product, Andrew. I see the benefits. Steam has over 130,000 games. Games go on sale more often than they do on console. And SteamOS itself has more ways of customizing the experience than traditional gaming consoles. I also see the advantage of having something small in size, something slightly bigger than a tissue box, but powerful like a gaming PC. It can fit anywhere and looks pretty sharp. Having the Steam machine also opens up the world of ROMs and emulators. They will work perfectly on a Steam machine because the system runs on an open Linux-based Steam operating system. You can easily download, configure, and run emulators to play classic console games directly on your TV. So again, not new for me, Andrew, but new to most PC gamers who would normally play them on their laptop or on a monitor. The Steam machine also has 5 USB ports, which include 2 2.0 ports, 2 3.2 Gen 1 ports, and 1 USB-C port. So while it doesn't have a disk drive, you could plug in an external USB CD DVD drive to install old games as long as they are Linux supported. And while it comes with SteamOS, you can download Windows onto it, or even create a dual boot with Windows and SteamOS. And the Steam controllers can be used wired or wireless. So I see the draw. I see the benefits. But I get into the specs, the space, and the prices to own one of these machines. It's probably not going to make much sense to you.
Yeah, not to spoil the whole conversation, but the cost is one of the prohibitive aspects of the Steam machine. But it does have that flexibility, to your point. You know, it's potentially great for the average user who's not going to do a lot of customization, just wants to plug it in, use it like a console, and at the same time does have that flexibility that can be taken advantage of by more advanced users who can set up emulators, who can set up a dual boot with Windows, etc. So there definitely are benefits on paper.
But to the average gamer, you're going to see the drawbacks. So let's get into the specs, and then we're going to get into the prices. So here are the specs. For a CPU, semi-custom AMD Zen 4, so a 6-core 12-thread processor up to 4.8 gigahertz. Clock speed, GPU is a semi-custom AMD RDNA 3, 28 compute units, up to 2.45 gigahertz. Memory, equivalent to a Radeon RX 7600M GPU. 16 gigabytes of DDR5 video memory, 8 gigabytes of VRAM, which, by the way, is not a lot for some of the modern games, right? You run out of VRAM pretty fast. In fact, for a game like Neo 3, which was released over the last year or so, you run out of that 8 gigabytes very fast, and it starts impacting your performance. The Steam Machine comes in 512 gigabyte or 2 terabyte NVMe SSD drives, and this is upgradable. But, Andrew, it's not the idea of the Steam Machine that people are divided on. It's the price for the value you are getting. With many people thinking that Valve has priced themselves out of the market and will not be able to compete with traditional gaming consoles like PlayStation and Xbox. And at this time, I agree with that stance.
Oh, absolutely. A lot of people have pointed out that you can custom build or even get a pre-built gaming PC with better specs at a lower cost. The price, which we're going to get into, the bang for your buck for those specs just isn't there.
So check out these prices. $1,049 will get you a 512 gigabyte Steam Machine with no controller. The next level up is $1,128, 512 gigabytes of space with a controller. Next step up is $1,349, 2 terabyte hard drive, no controller. And finally, the best Steam Machine you can get, $1,428, 2 terabyte hard drive with a controller. Andrew, each controller costs $100. So, if you want to get a Steam Machine with 2 terabytes of space and 2 controllers, you're looking at spending $1,528. That is insane. So, there are serious issues with this pricing. Not only because they are much higher than the PS5, PS5 Pro, and Xbox Series consoles, but because of how much space you are getting, and the fact that the Steam Machine does not appear to be as powerful as those consoles. The specs speak to a mid-range PC that could have issues running today's most demanding games. You can only upgrade 2 components on the Steam Machine, Andrew, the hard drive and the RAM. You cannot upgrade the GPU, which only comes with 8 gigabytes of VRAM, which I mentioned earlier, as the GPU is permanently soldered to the motherboard. Same with the CPU. You cannot upgrade it for the same reason. So you can't upgrade the GPU and you can't upgrade the CPU in this thing. This means what you get is what you are stuck with for performance, regardless of what the top titles demand and what new games may demand down the road. You also only get 512 gigabytes of space with no controller for the get-in price of $1,049 and $1,128 with 1 controller included. Games take up a lot more space over the last decade, Andrew. For example, NBA 2K series, there were a few releases that took up over 100 gigabytes of space. I think one was around 160 gigabytes.
Yes.
Just for installing one of the PC versions of NBA 2K. So think about that. That means you could be running out of space really fast for this very expensive piece of equipment that you bought. In fact, I have countless games installed that take up over 50 gigabytes. Some, like I stated, like some of the NBA 2Ks, that take up over 100 gigabytes. So yeah, like I implied, if you want to play some of the modern games on this console, you may run out of space fast. And the higher priced Steam machines with 2 terabytes of space is equally as ridiculous. None of these prices, including the get-in price of $1,049 with no controller, which is actually $1,149 because you will want to get a controller so you can play, is not appealing in any way to the average console gamer. It's also not appealing to the average PC gamer. Why? Because the average PC gamer knows that he can do better either building his own PC or buying a pre-built, with both being far more upgradable and future-proof than the Steam Machine. For example, my brother's PC is a $800 pre-built from Walmart, with specs very similar to the Steam Machine, with a slightly better graphics card with more VRAM. His has 10 gigabytes as opposed to 8. He loves it and he plays all of his games on PC, and it was more affordable than this Steam Machine. So Yeah, I won't be getting one, Andrew. I think these prices are absolutely ridiculous. I don't think this is going to appeal to the average gamer, and I want to see what happens with these sales. I want to see how well it sells because I just don't see it being that popular.
Yeah, once again, the price is very prohibitive. I did the conversion to Australian dollars, starting at 1,500 to almost 2,100 for the top package there. Again, you can get a gaming PC here in Australia, better specs, for a much better price, especially at this time, which is around the end of the financial year, with a lot of sales going on. So yeah, even if I had the funds put aside for this, it definitely isn't good value for money. Like you say, 512 gigabytes, these days that's not that big, to be honest. And of course, you're not getting the full 512 gigabytes. First of all, you don't actually get the advertised size for hard drives and SSDs. Then, of course, you have the operating system. That takes up some space. Not the whole drive, obviously, but still a few gigabytes at the very least. So you don't even have that full 512 gigabytes. To your point, many games at least 50 gigabytes to 100 to 150 gigabytes or more in recent years. So yeah, the 512 gigabyte system, is it workable? Sure, depending on your library, depending on what you play, but most people are probably going to have to opt for that 2 terabyte version, plus buy a controller or 2 or more to use it as a console. And using it like a console, obviously that is the implied benefit. And there was somebody on X, a pundit for PC gaming, really talking it up and saying that people were basically hating on it. And you know how much we love people saying that any criticism is hating, Derek. We certainly love that. But that ignores the fact that you can already get PCs more powerful, just as flexible, like you're doing, like you and your brother are doing, and use those as consoles already. So for the price, you're not getting those advantages at all.
Exactly. And the whole, you're just hating on it. Whenever people say stuff like that, they never apply context to the conversation, and their take is completely one-sided, and usually they're shilling.
No counterpoints,
right? Yeah, exactly. So more on the price. I wanted to bring up this article. It was written by IGN by Jacqueline Thomas on June 22nd, 2026. She wrote, the Steam Machine was originally meant to cost about $750. The Rampocalypse claims another victim. She states the Steam Machine got announced earlier today with an eye-watering $1,049 asking price for the entry-level 512 gigabyte model. But that's probably not the price Valve had in mind for its mini gaming PC. And you notice I called this a console because that's kind of what they're advertising it as, and it's not upgradable like a PC. I'm having trouble calling this a PC, Andrew, right? To me, it's a incredibly overpriced console due to the lack of upgradable ability with it. She continues, when I got a chance to sit down with Valve engineers Pierre-Luc Griffes and Yazan Aldahayat, hopefully I didn't butcher those, last week to talk about the Steam Machine, I asked them what the Steam Machine would have cost before the current memory market. And while neither of them would give me a hard number, I was told that it was probably similar to the price increase that the Steam Deck experienced last month. She continues, some quick napkin math pins that Steam Deck price increase at around 35 to 36% above the handheld's original $549 asking price, resulting in the new price of $789, which is equally ridiculous in my opinion, Andrew. If you do the same math for a hypothetical $749 pre-ramflation Steam Machine, that would make the final $1,049 price about 33% more expensive. She continues, I was told that Valve hadn't landed on a final price before it had to start tweaking the price to reflect the new reality that we're living through. But a $749 price tag would put it in spitting distance with my original guess that the Steam Machine would cost about $800. Now, I have a question for you. If the Steam Machine, as an entry-level price with no controller, was $750, Andrew, would you have considered it? I don't think you would. I still think that doesn't make sense at that price, right? Because you still have to get 1 or 2 controllers. You're looking at about $950, and it just doesn't make sense even at that $750 price for the entry-level version.
Yeah, and that's still going to be about 1,000 Australian, and you're still going to be able to get a more powerful pre-built PC for that price, one that you can potentially upgrade as well. And I was just looking into the controller situation, and it does say that you can use the original Steam controller, you can use PlayStation, Xbox controllers, my Logitech should work as well. So if you do have a controller already, you can bring that over. But is the average person who's going to be getting this as a console, essentially, is that's essentially what it is, if somebody's going to get into PC gaming via the Steam machine, they're not necessarily going to have a controller on hand. Maybe they do have a console and they're looking to make the switch to PC gaming so they can just use that existing controller instead. You know, maybe they can find a Logitech controller or another PC gamepad that is a bit cheaper. But to that point, you either have to bring your own or buy a controller. So most likely there is going to be that added expense.
Yeah, and again, everything that you just said, does that appeal to the average gamer?
I wouldn't think so, no.
Is that no, and not just that. When you buy a console, you want to get the controllers for that console, right? And with Steam OS, the best experience is going to be using the trackpads. And I think that's also part of the reason why these controllers are more expensive than the average video game controller. You know, you can, if you want a new Xbox One wireless controller, you can probably get it for $60 or $70. This Steam machine controller is $99 or whatever, $100. So I think that's part of the reason. Why?
Because, of course, you're replacing the mouse, essentially.
Yeah, exactly. And at that $750 price point, let's say that was the entry level, right? You still need a controller, so there you're up to $850. You want to play with somebody else, you're probably going to want to get another controller, so there you're up to $950. You still don't have the upgradable piece that you'll get with a PC. And that's with mini towers too. Let's not forget that desktop PCs have also gotten smaller, right? And you can get them in different forms as well. It's not always a tall box. Sometimes it can be a long box. There are some pretty powerful compact PCs, which are also called mini PCs, out there as well. But as it relates to tower PCs, there's some smaller form ones that allow you to upgrade the GPU, upgrade the CPU, do more with it in general, all of that stuff. And in this, even if it was lower priced, you can't update the CPU or GPU, meaning this could get outdated for modern gaming in just a couple years, or just a few years. And if you're spending that much on a console, the average gamer isn't going to want that to be outdated that fast, right? So there are a lot of different concerns with this. And there's been a lot of people on social media talking about, hey, I built this PC myself. It's more powerful than the Steam machine with more space, and I spent $300 or $400 less doing it, right? That is a legitimate comparison. They are more than in their right to bring up that comparison and educate people on it. I've seen people talking about how they buy pre-builts, like my brother. You know, his pre-built that works awesome, that has a better GPU than what's in the Steam machine. And people are talking about, hey, I got this one at Walmart, I got this pre-built at Best Buy, I got this pre-built off of Newegg, and this computer is more powerful than the Steam machine, and I spent hundreds less on it. Hey guys, why don't you go try to pick up one of these, right? Or get a similar build. This is all context, right? This is all important to note. And I actually appreciate the people that are bringing up options for people that don't want to spend this much, but want to be able to have Steam gaming in their living room.
It's important context. Absolutely. And those extra $300 or $400 that they save with that more powerful option, that also goes towards games. Because you and I, being PC gamers, other people in our situation, we do have that Steam library pre-built, if you will, to bring in to a Steam machine, theoretically. If you are trying to get into PC gaming through the Steam machine, you're making that switch from console, or you don't have any gaming hardware already, you also need the games, the software. That is expensive. And obviously you start with just a couple you want to play, sure, but it's all extra money you have to spend. So you've got to buy the Steam machine, probably going for the 2 terabyte option if you want to have that longevity, if you want to have that option to have a lot of games installed at one time and switch between them. So you go for the more expensive option. You get a controller or two. So you're getting towards 1,600 US or over 2,300 Australian. And then you've got to buy the games on top of that.
And you want to hear the kicker? So you know the Steam Machine controller, it can work on your regular PC, right? So for those people who maybe don't want to have like a mouse and keyboard sitting by them on the couch, which is what I do. That's never bothered me. I just have my mouse, my keyboard. I could record highlights from my couch. It's worked wonders. It's been awesome. I'm not going to lie. I love it. I plan on gaming this way forever. But that Steam Machine controller, you could technically buy that and it works on your PC. And then you have your trackpads and then you could just use your PC like the Steam Machine anyway. So I did want to bring up that fact. But yeah, Andrew, you're right. You know, there's going to be countless gamers out there that don't have Steam or don't have a Steam library yet, or maybe only a couple games in that library. So they're going to have to spend extra money on Steam games on top of this ridiculous price.
Before we go on, a reminder that the NLSC podcast comes out every week on the NLSC, NBA-live.com, as well as our YouTube channel. We're also on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and other podcast apps. If you're listening on any of those apps, we'd greatly appreciate a review. To keep up with the show and everything we're doing with basketball gaming in general, connect with us on social media. On Twitter and Facebook, we are the NLSC. We also have an Instagram, NLSC Basketball, and on YouTube, we're youtube.com/NBA Live Series Center. Once again, visit us at NBA-live.com, where in addition to the podcast, you'll also find all of our original content, as well as our forum and modding community.
I wanted to get into some community reactions to the price of the Steam Machine. Game or Die at GamerDie007 states, the Valve Steam Machine, the second try, is now out. It's too costly for it to be worth it right now, though. Instead, take your PC that you have right now and plug it into the HDMI port in your TV, and bam, free Steam Machine. More powerful, probably, too. So, yeah. He's recommending that people game like I do, you know, with their Steam library on their TV with their current PC.
Again, more economical.
Keith at GNU Keith states, I wonder why it isn't that price. And what he reposted was a post from somebody named Johnny who said, this is what it should have been. 512 gigabytes without a controller, $499. 512 gigabytes plus the controller, $569. 2 terabytes without a controller, $799. 2 terabytes plus controller bundle, $869. Now that, Andrew, would have made a splash, I think. I think that would have been appealing to console gamers. I think that at those prices, they would have sold a lot of units.
Yeah, you got to be competitive, not just with PCs, obviously, but also with consoles. And the inevitable, oh, you're broke, this is for people who have money argument. Certainly, if you are getting into PC gaming or any kind of gaming, you need a budget for it. But it's not a flex. And we've said this before, Derek. It's not a flex to be able to say, I will overpay for something that is not worth the price tag. That's just being a silly consumer. That's not being savvy as a consumer.
Yeah, and I've seen plenty of responses from people who are being super shills for the Steam Machine and probably have been shills ever since it was announced.
Of course.
Yeah, I've been seeing them talk about, you know, well, if you're broke, don't buy it. You must be broke, etc. So they're doing the whole you're broke BS. Paul Denton at StunProd Stud states, go ahead and buy your Walmart boxes and get back to me how it turns out. My brother loves his Walmart box, Andrew. A lot of people are happy with those PCs. And yeah, if you look at price for performance, yeah, I think this guy has no idea what he's talking about. Polywar at Polywa_93 states, for what a Steam Machine with a controller costs, you could buy a PS5 Pro and a Switch 2. Valve has completely lost its mind. And a lot of people have been pointing that out. They're saying, hey, instead of getting a Steam Machine, why don't you just save hundreds of dollars and get a PS5 Pro, which outperforms the Steam Machine, and you can get a handheld console as well.
And again, use that money that you save to buy games which are definitely going to be compatible with the console, which has always been the benefit of console gaming, obviously, that immediate compatibility, that lack of a need to check for specs, to worry that your system isn't going to run it. I say that as somebody who's grown up playing on PC and console. So yeah, once again, people shilling and not looking at the big picture.
Rock Solid at Post Rock states, advertised as a 4K 60 FPS with FSR gaming machine. And this is before they announced that it's no longer being promoted as 4K at 60 FPS. It's just being promoted as capable of 4K. He continues, base model does not come with a controller. Can barely pull 40 FPS on most new titles. Performance comparable to RTX 3060. 16 gigabytes of DDR5 RAM in 2026. 500 gigabyte hard drive. Not upgradable. All this for the price of $1,050. He says this effing sucks. Nicola at Nick_Marcel states PS5-like performance or worse for double the price.
Yeah, and bang for your buck is important. Again, it's not about whether you can afford it or not. It's whether it's actually worth buying, whether it's actually going to do the job that you want it to.
Bublik states, B Steam machine, tiny black cube 6 inches wide, made by Valve, the Steam and Half-Life people. Basically a pre-built gaming PC for your TV. Plug in, grab a gamepad, done. Run SteamOS, not Windows. Plays your whole Steam library. No fee to play online, unlike PlayStation. 6 times stronger than a Steam Deck. AMD Zen 4 chip, RDNA 3 graphics, 16 gigabytes of RAM. Aims for 1440p and even 4K. Console simplicity. PC freedom. Valve wants your living room. Again, PlayStation you actually own that plays everything you already bought. So I don't know if he's promoting it there or not. I caught a lot of positives, but then also a few negatives in there as well. But I thought that was a very interesting response.
Well, that just sounds like a marketing spin to me. That sounds like a pre-written statement, to be honest. It's kind of like the statements we see from 2K content creators around the time that the previous season is kicking into gear, which it is about to tip off, obviously, or closer to release, where all the content creators start releasing that same statement or that same variation on the statement, as you pointed out before, Derek. That sounds very pre-written to me.
The Actman at the Actman_YT states $1,000 for a console that doesn't come with a controller, only half a terabyte. Valve, what on God's green earth are you smoking?
Yeah, and again, 512 gigabytes sounds like a lot, but you shave a little off the top, because once again, drives never have the advertised size. You take off a little bit more for the operating system. You need to have some space left available for caching files, for updates, etc. You can't fill that hard drive and have the console or Steam machine or PC work properly. Same thing on a console, on PlayStation 5, Xbox Series X, and the previous consoles as well. You couldn't have below a certain threshold of free space because the console needs that free space for caching and other functions. So you're not going to have anywhere close to 512 gigabytes. 2 terabytes, obviously more manageable. If you are going to be a serious gamer, buy and install a number of games, you have to go for that more expensive version. And even then, some games these days, as we've said, are going to fill that very quickly.
Mighty Keef at Mighty Keef states $1,000 minimum for the Steam machine is going to be a hard sell, a very hard sell for most people. I don't know, man. And yes, that is what I'm getting at. I just don't think this price appeals to the average gamer, and to go along with, its limitations. I honestly just don't see it, and I don't think it will do that well. And I will admit freely if I am wrong. Michael at Legacy Killa HD states next Xbox and PS6 pricing is going to be a disaster, LMAO. And yeah, I was thinking the same thing. If they're pricing the Steam machine this way, are we going to be looking at consoles in the future being over $1,000?
Well, with the increased price of hardware, RAM, etc., yeah, not the best time to be launching this system, not necessarily the best time to be buying new hardware in general. Yeah, what's it going to mean for the future of consoles? And those are right around the corner as well.
Globku at Globku states, fine. I'll buy a longer HDMI cable. So he saw the pricing and he's just like, yeah, I'm going to hook my PC up to my TV. I'm not paying those prices. Hannah the Hermit at Hannah's Hermit states, just buy a gaming PC if you have this money. Holy moly. Ali RX at Ali RX states, you can buy a pre-built PC or build your own desktop PC for a similar price, and it would be a much better deal than this. At the very least, you can upgrade all the parts down the line if you want to. And if you want a living room or console-like experience, install SteamOS or Bazite and use a Bluetooth controller. I bet the Steam machine has a weaker CPU than the i9-12900K from 5 years ago. So yeah, not like in the specs, and he thinks you can do better building your own PC or buying a pre-built. So yeah, that's some reaction from around Twitter. I also asked a community question, Andrew, related to this, which is, what are your thoughts on the Steam machine prices? Will you consider buying? If so, why? And yes, I did that intentionally. Why would you buy this? I want to know why you would buy this at these prices. And we did receive a few responses on Twitter and a couple on Discord. Stasho Bro at Nate Stasho, Live 01 legend, friend of the show, states, you would really only buy this if you wanted to access Steam-only games and you didn't want a gaming PC. PS5 was way cheaper for me, but I don't get access to all the Steam games. T Gentry at Bucky_T states, absolutely not a chance. I will stick with my 5 different consoles I have. And, that's another thing, there is talk about, hey, ROMs and emulators and whatnot. And yes, it creates an ease of access, and you can have them all in one place. But yeah, a lot of people still like to have those consoles, Andrew, and a lot of people still have those consoles. They don't have to go out and get them again, and they'll hook those consoles up to their TV freely and happily and play their games that way.
Absolutely. And there are some games, as we know, that don't work on the emulators as yet, or they don't work very well. They have some kind of graphical glitch or speed glitch. I was covering NBA Jam 99 earlier this year for Wayback Wednesday and noticed there was an issue with the speed. Had to get my original console out, hook it up again, and test it out just to see whether that was an emulation issue, which it absolutely is. So, emulation, while fantastic, we just played a game of NBA Live 09 with WizCard Rush over the weekend on the PlayStation 3 emulator over Parsec. As always, fantastic experience, but not every game works. Not everybody has the knowledge to set up emulators and ROMs. Get that working on a gaming PC or a Steam machine or Steam Deck or whatever. So a lot of this stuff is great if you are an advanced user, if you do have that knowledge. But to that point, Derek, if you have that knowledge, you're probably going to go for the more economical option. You're going to go for that better gaming PC.
Agreed. Andrew at Andrew the X states, no chance I will buy. I was 50-50 on Steam Machine if prices were 40% less than this. But at this price, it's a hard no. Can I afford it? Yes. Can I justify its purchase for price to performance, given it can't handle current games that well? No. And yeah, stop calling people broke, right? I have the money to get this too. It's not about that. It's about it is overpriced. I'm not going to overpay for something like this. And I already have a setup that, in my opinion, is better than what the Steam machine can offer. There are people out there that are going to have the money for this, but can't justify purchasing it because it's overpriced, because of the limitations, because it could become outdated for newer games very soon.
Exactly. And X is in Australia, as I am, again, looking at $1,500 to just under $2,100 for the Steam machine. Not to harp on the point, but you can get a much better gaming machine for those prices or less here in Australia. So it's not a wise purchase. And again, it's not a flex to overpay for something that isn't giving you value for money. There's no sense to that. You're not being a savvy consumer. It's not about being broke or being able to afford it. I mean, certainly affordability is an issue, but as X said, yes, you can afford it, but it's not worth it.
Moving over to Discord, QB1120 states, I'm sorry, but that's just way too much. I already got a computer with Steam and a controller. Even at half the cost, I still wouldn't do it. And that's like you, right, Andrew? Even if it was half the cost, you wouldn't be looking at this.
Yeah, once again, I can see the benefits. I can see the cool things you can do with it, but my setup works for me. And of course, like you, I also use my PC for work and content creation purposes. Am I going to be able to do that on the Steam machine? Who knows?
So thank you to the community for weighing in. Yeah, I mean, let's see what happens with these consoles. Let's see if there's a big sale at some point down the road. I do want to point out that this whole Rampocalypse thing, the price of everything, and everything's more expensive, and inflation, bro, and all of that stuff, that doesn't mean that the prices are fair. It doesn't mean that there's justification for these prices that will make a consumer go, oh, well, you know what? This stuff is so expensive today, I might as well just spend the money. Right. I might as well spend $1,400 on a Steam machine and, oh, well, I need another controller, so over $1,500. The bottom line is these prices are high. And it doesn't matter if the cost of everything is high. It's not going to make it more appealing to the average consumer. And that's why I don't think that this is going to do well. Not at the entry level price and not at the $1,400-$1,500 price.
Agreed. And a final note on the cost of games, because people will say, oh, there's always Steam sales. Oh, you can go on various sites that sell Steam keys legitimately and get these games on sale. A lot of us have built up our Steam libraries with games that we hardly play because there was a great bundle deal or a great sale. We just picked up a game we thought we might like, we've heard a lot about, it's on sale for $5. Why not? Sure, that happens periodically. But is the game that you want always going to be on sale? Is it always going to be at that reduced price? Of course not. A lot of games still remain full retail price long after they're released. And, Tim Kaine, the creator of the original Fallout, has mentioned that, yes, games have been fairly inflation-proof, but the distribution method has changed. You don't see many physical releases. Look at the controversy over the wait for the physical release of GTA 6, Derek. And that's going to be on consoles to begin with anyway, not going to come to PC until later, at which point it's going to be a digital release. And the savings of not releasing games physically as often or at all, as Tim Kaine has pointed out, and this is someone within the industry, someone who's been in the industry for 30-odd years or whatever, he's pointed out that those savings haven't been passed on to the consumer. So it's all added cost. The controller, the games, if you don't have them on hand already, yeah, the cost is prohibitive.
Yeah, not only that, the prices of games have stayed pretty similar throughout, but the cost of everything has gone up, right? So what does that make games, Andrew, for the average person? Less affordable.
A luxury,
right?
Yeah.
Because they're paying more to live. They're paying more for everything else. So that's also important to note. The other piece of this is just because there's an article out there and Valve states, we wanted to price this at $750, but we were going to sell at a loss or whatever. So now we have to sell at these prices. That doesn't make it any more affordable either. Just because you came up with some rationale that makes sense for your company to price these Steam machines at an outrageous cost, that doesn't make it more affordable to the average consumer, and it doesn't make the average consumer go, well, he makes a good point, and prices are up everywhere. I might as well just spend it. I'm just going to spend that money. That's not the way it works, right? Yeah. So that's why all of this is ridiculous to me.
I mean, yeah, that may be a fine rationalization for that price for the company. Fine, but it comes down to the consumer saying, well, I can't afford that, or that is not good value for money, so I'm going to pass on it. Absolutely. But thank you to everybody who responded to Derek's community question. I think we kind of predict those responses, Derek.
Yeah, I mean, when I first saw those prices, I was like, this is not going to be a hit. And most people, the large majority of people, are going to be hitting back at this and stating, what the hell are they doing? And this isn't going to appeal to the average gamer. And, let's talk about gaming PCs, either pre-built or, ones that you can make yourself, that are, superior specs wise and more affordable than this. And I love that people are doing that. I love the fact that more people are getting educated on what their options are for this type of living room gaming. So yeah, I think that's one positive that's come out of this.
Yeah. And it's not hating to consider the pros and cons, value for money, and alternatives. With that being said, that's brought us to the end of this week's show. Thank you for tuning in, and a reminder that you can catch us every week on the NLSC, our YouTube channel, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and other podcast platforms. Also, both we and the NLSC are on social media. I would appreciate a follow. So, Derek, go and plug the handles.
Yeah, you can reach me on X, formerly known as Twitter, at D43G and at D4384. I'm also on the NLSC, D43, and on YouTube, D43.
As for me, I'm Andrew in the forum, and Andrew NLSC on X and Blue Sky. The NLSC is on X, Facebook, and Blue Sky at the NLSC. We're also NLSC Basketball on Instagram and Threads. We're on YouTube at NBA Live Series Center. And of course, keep a look to the NLSC itself, NBA-Live.com, for all things basketball gaming. So, thank you again for tuning in, and until next time, I'm Andrew.
And I'm Derek.
Go get buckets, everyone!